So dig this. A man was bulldozing a bog in central Ireland the other day when he noticed something unusual in the freshly turned soil. Turns out he'd unearthed an early medieval treasure, an ancient book of Psalms that experts date to the years 800 to 1000. Experts say it will take years of painstaking work to document and preserve this book, but eventually it will go on public display. Now here's the kicker. The book, about 20 pages of Latin script, was allegedly found open to Psalm 83. Now, if you're a scholar, as you know, Psalm 83, God hears complaints that other nations are plotting to wipe out the name of Israel.
Israeli planes and tanks pounded the Gaza Strip this morning. Israel says it carried out 16 airstrikes today. Gaza police say 2 people were killed and the home of a Hamas Justice Ministry official was hit. He was not hurt. Israel warns the air campaign could continue into next month.
The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens and layeth the foundation of the earth and formeth the spirit of man within it. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, and they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day will I make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it.
Hamas is accusing Israel of war crimes.
And it says this weekend's airstrike on this 14-story building that crumbled in Gaza City is a serious escalation of the crisis. Israel claims it was a command center for Hamas. The building's residents dispute that. The Israeli missiles destroyed the building but claim no lives. No one was killed since the Israelis warned of the strike in advance.
Meantime, over in Israel, the family of a 4-year-old boy is in mourning after his burial on Sunday. He was killed in a mortar attack near his home, not far from the Gaza border. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says airstrikes will continue against Hamas targets. He says civilians should leave any place where there's a Hamas presence.
Hamas will pay, and pay heavily for its crimes. I call on the inhabitants of Gaza to evacuate immediately every site from which Hamas is carrying out terrorist activity. Every one of those places is a target for us.
Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Asser also has joined with them. They hope in the children of Lot. Selah.
The IDF is saying an attack near a kindergarten has killed an Israeli child on a 3rd day of renewed fighting between Israel and Hamas. Meantime, gunmen in Gaza executed 18 people accused of spying for Israel after airstrikes that killed 3 senior Hamas commanders. Rick Leventhal live in Gaza City. He has the latest for us. Rick.
John, it's been a bloody Friday on both sides of the border with at least close to 100 rockets fired from Gaza toward Israel and more than 30 airstrikes here in Gaza. And then those 2 mass executions that you mentioned happening earlier today. The first group of 11 were reportedly killed inside the Gaza police headquarters in Gaza City. 2 of the dead were women, according to the Palestinian Rights Center. And then early this afternoon, 7 people lined up on the street outside a downtown mosque as worshipers were finishing their noon prayers. The 7 had hoods over their heads, a piece of paper placed above them with their initials and alleged crime, and then they were executed, according to witnesses who say one gunman told the group they sold their souls to the enemy for a cheap price. These executions came a day after 3 senior Hamas leaders were killed in an airstrike on a home in Rafah in southern Gaza. The Israelis are known to have local informers to help pinpoint these airstrikes, reportedly using the lure of exit permits or even blackmail, according to some wire services, to win cooperation among these Palestinian people. Meanwhile, sirens sounded across Israel, sending people running for shelters again today, with dozens more rockets fired at Israel, including one that hit a synagogue in Ashdod, wounding 3 people. There was also a mortar that struck near a kindergarten. That's where that 4-year-old boy was killed late this afternoon in southern Israel. That was the 4th civilian casualty there, along with 64 soldiers. Of course, the death toll here in Gaza much higher, more than 2,000 killed, including almost 500 children. And John, we continue to hear the fighter jets and the drones overhead tonight.
The battle goes on. Rick Leventhal. Rick, thanks.
Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. For Gaza shall be forsaken, and Ashkelon a desolation. They shall drive out Ashdod at the noonday, and Ekron shall be rooted up. Woe unto the inhabitants of the sea coast, the nation of the Kerethites. The word of the Lord is against you. O Canaan, the land of the Philistines, I will even destroy thee, that there shall be no inhabitant. And the sea coast shall be dwellings and cottages for shepherds, and folds for flocks. And the coast shall be for the remnant of the house of Judah. They shall feed thereupon. In the houses of Ashkelon shall they lie down in the evening. For the Lord their God shall visit them, and turn away their captivity.
Hey, Eric, it seems that both sides have increased the intensity of the attacks, trying to wear the other out, and we are seeing that vividly tonight. We want to show you some video we captured just over an hour ago of an Israeli airstrike on a target very close to our location. These are 3 of the 6 rockets fired by the Israelis at this target that was said to have launched rockets toward Israel earlier today. A number of other airstrikes here across Gaza, dozens of them today, killing at least 16 Palestinians today alone. They were targeting the Israelis' buildings and vehicles used by Hamas, including that 7-story office building you mentioned that was leveled this morning, along with a 2-story shopping center severely damaged, both in Rafah near the southern border. This follows yesterday's takedown of that 12-story apartment building. The Zafar Tower had 44 apartments, one of them allegedly used by Hamas as an operations center, which is why Israel says it warned residents to get out and then destroyed the building. Also today, another targeted assassination of a Hamas leader described as a money man for the group. He was killed in his car that was hit in another missile strike. People gathered around the vehicle and then found cash in the wreckage. Meanwhile, Hamas has launched well over 100 more rockets toward Israel today, more than 600 since breaking the ceasefire on Tuesday, and also launched nearly 24 mortars at the Erez border crossing, including that attack injured several Israeli Arabs who were there waiting to assist Palestinians who've been badly injured in the fighting and needed medical treatment in Israel. Because of this mortar attack on the border crossing, the Israelis closed that border crossing today, Eric, and until they reopen it, no one can leave Gaza.
All right, Rick, thanks for the latest on the ground in Gaza.
The Israeli military says one of its airstrikes has killed a top Hamas official in Gaza City.
That's right. Mohammed al-Ul allegedly supervised the group's financial transactions. Palestinian medics confirmed his death. Israeli airstrikes killed more than a dozen other Palestinians Sunday. Gaza's Ministry of Health says a mother and her 3 children were in their house. They were among the dead.
Meantime, the Israeli military says this video shows rockets being launched toward Israel from a medical facility in the Al-Shati refugee camp in northern Gaza. 4 Israelis were wounded in shelling at a border crossing near the town of Erez Sunday. Well, Hamas is singling out collaborators from within the organization for recent deadly attacks from Israel. As Ian Lee tells us, the militant group is taking drastic steps to see to it that it doesn't happen again.
A death sentence read aloud by Hamas militants, telling this crowded mosque, "We're implementing God's judgment by executing traitors of God and country." Moments later, their justice comes swiftly, a bullet for each man. A graphic warning for a crowd of onlookers, one that resonates with the people of Gaza. Each spy deserves the death penalty, Abu Raed tells me. Without spies, Israel would have no information. Hamas says at least 22 alleged collaborators have been executed since the war began. There is a war and dangerous spies are operating in Gaza, says Hamas spokesman Fawzi Barhoum. They forced us to take harsh measures in the form of executing these spies. It sends a strong message to Israel and other spies. The militant group blames collaborators for recent airstrikes that killed 3 Hamas commanders in southern Gaza. 18 people were executed publicly the following day. This is where those alleged collaborators were killed. You can still see the blood-stained ground and a bullet hole in the wall. Hamas says these are necessary actions during a time of war, but human rights groups argue that it's this time particularly where you shouldn't lose sight of the rule of law.
They are tantamount to extrajudicial executions. Though the president...
Human rights advocate Hamdi Shaoura criticizes the lack of transparency during the trials. He condemns not just public executions, but every death sentence.
We are worried that more executions may be carried out in the future.
That's likely to happen again. As the war enters its 8th week, Israeli strikes continue. So too does Hamas's hunt for collaborators. Ian Lee, CNN, Gaza City.
Iran now says it has shot down an Israeli spy drone near one of Iran's nuclear sites. Israel has no comment. As part of multilateral talks on its nuclear capacity, Iran has opened a uranium enrichment facility in the same area the drone was shot down. And in the Gaza conflict, new raids by Hamas and Israel leave scores of casualties. Each side refuses to back down, with civilians caught in the crossfire. CCTV's Rowie Ruttenberg has more from Tel Aviv.
Residents of the Al-Zafar Tower in Gaza City returned home on Sunday to salvage whatever they could. The multi-story complex was hit by an Israeli airstrike the previous night. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the city, dozens attended the funeral of a man killed in an Israeli airstrike on Saturday when his car was hit. Another casualty in the latest tit-for-tat violence. Efforts in nearby Cairo have so far failed to convince both sides to stop firing. On the Israeli side of the border, troops waited for possible orders to re-enter Gaza by foot. This as Israeli leaders vowed that the offensive, dubbed Operation Protective Edge, would continue until the attacks stopped.
If Hamas leaders think they can tire us out or believe that we have set ourselves a timetable, they are mistaken. We are not in a hurry to go anywhere. We have patience, we have stamina.
Just a few kilometers away from Gaza, the Traegerman family buried their 4-year-old son. He was killed on Friday, struck inside his kibbutz Nachal Oz home. by shrapnel from a Palestinian-fired rocket. The family had been preparing to evacuate again the following day.
The ceasefire talks in the Middle East have hit a wall, a new wall. This news comes following escalating violence in the region. Overnight, Israel claimed that rockets landed in communities near the Gaza border. This coming as Palestinian officials claim at least 16 people were killed in Israeli airstrikes on Sunday, including a Hamas financial leader. 4 Israelis were also hurt in a mortar strike near that Gaza border. Carl Penhall following these developments live from Jerusalem. Good morning, Carl.
Morning, John. We're told by the Israeli military that Gaza militant factions have fired more than 150 rockets towards Israel in the last 24 hours, and that has led Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to vow that Hamas will pay a high price for these actions, and that is what is fueling the fire that's being traded on either side right now. In the Israeli airstrikes, for example, civilians have also been killed, at least 16, according to the Palestinian Health Authority, including a mother and her 3 children. On the Israeli side, well, a mortar attack by Hamas on the Erez border crossing, and that border crossing is now closed until further notice. But there is a glimmer of hope. We're hearing from some of the Palestinian groups, quoting unnamed sources, that there may be an announcement from Egyptian authorities about some kind of new ceasefire proposal. That could come as early as today. No confirmation right now, though, from the Israeli government. John?
Well, let's hope, but it's hard to see where that talk would succeed while the others have failed. Carl Penhall live for us in Jerusalem. Thank you so much.
John Kerry invested an enormous amount of time. In the end, it's up to the 2 parties to make a decision. We can lead them to resolve some of the technical issues and to show them a path, but they've got to want it.
That was President Obama earlier today, suggesting there's only so much America can do to broker a peace between Israel and Hamas. Our next guest is the son of one of the founders of Hamas and says a lasting peace will never be possible. His father, a leader of the terror group, was arrested earlier this summer in connection with the kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teenagers. That crime is believed to have sparked the deadly conflict between Israel and Hamas nearly, well, years ago. When the world began to see images like these emerge of the child victims in this fight, Mossab Hassan Youssef felt compelled to speak out in the hopes of shedding light on Hamas ideology. Mossab Hassan Youssef is the son of Hamas founder Sheikh Hassan Youssef, and he's also the author of Son of Hamas. He is featured in the documentary The Green Prince. Mossab, good to see you tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And so let's start with this. Why do you believe that a lasting peace is never going to happen?
Well, peace between Israel and Hamas is not going to happen because Israel is a democracy. Hamas is a terrorist organization. It's an ideological organization. Is there a possibility for peace between Israel and Palestinians? That's possible, but not between Israel and Hamas.
Your father co-founds what our State Department says is a terror group, what you say is a terror group. How were you brought up in it? How did they begin to try to indoctrinate you?
Well, when I was a child, the first Palestinian Intifada started. And we witnessed violence and many people were dying and we hated Israel. Then the second Palestinian Intifada came and waves of suicide bombing attacks and we blamed Israel. And I used to think that Israel is the enemy, not knowing how my father and his organization was only a tool in the hands of some regional powers, that they move Hamas and encourage them to kill and fight against Israel for just political gain. And at some point I got really tired of this game, and I chose to different path for my life.
When you see these images that we are seeing now of these Palestinian children looking scared, hurt, confused, and I asked the current Israeli ambassador to the United States last night in the program about the fear that Israel, in fighting this battle, may be stoking the next generation of hate. Do you see that as a real risk, and how do we stop that from happening?
Well, it's a risk, and I think there's going to be more generations to to hate Israel. And unfortunately, Israel has no choice but to defend itself. Now, the only way, I believe, to fight an organization like Hamas is to unmask them by exposing their ideology, what they stand for. Hamas is not a political party. It's not even a Palestinian organization. Hamas hijacked what's so-called the Palestinian cause and infiltrated the society to push their religious ideological agendas. Now, I would like to remind the Palestinian people what Hamas did to their rival party, Fatah, in Gaza when Hamas took over a few years ago. They killed Fatah the same way that they're killing the Israeli soldiers today. Hamas does not care for the lives of Palestinians. Don't think for a second, please, that Hamas cares for the children's blood. They want the children of Gaza to die. This is what gives them Arab and Islamic world sympathy, and this is what will condemn Israel internationally. This is their game, and they're happy about it.
When I hear you talking about them, and this is, we've heard some of this before, I wonder how you think we, the United States, and our president are handling this. When you hear the president, he condemns Hamas's tactics, but then he also has harsh words for Israel on the civilian casualties.
Yes. Well, what I would like to see from the president of the United States of America, not to be a mediator here in this situation.
Right.
Israel is a democracy. And since Socrates and Plato, democracies don't negotiate with terrorists or terrorist organizations. As long as Hamas continues and insists to be a terrorist organization using force to push their political and religious agendas, I think all democracies has to unify to fight this type of organization. If we fail in fighting Hamas, tomorrow there will be 100 Hamas, and they will take advantage of our division and disagreement.
Is there too much equivocating going on, or is the president right to be calling out the civilian casualties?
Well, again, what I would like to see from the president of the supreme power in this world, not to take sides, not even to try to be balanced. He comes off balance, and he tried to come as a mediator in this situation. He needs to stand by Israel, not because Israel stands for all the American values and the free world values alone, because Hamas is the enemy of the United States of America. Hamas is the enemy of the free world. And what Israel is doing today in the region is fighting on behalf of all the free people in this Western civilization.
Wow. Mossab, you're a very brave young man. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
But now thus saith the Lord that created thee, O Jacob, and he that formed thee, O Israel. Fear not, for I have redeemed thee. I have called thee by thy name, thou art mine. When thou passest through the waters, I will be with thee, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow thee. When thou walkest through the fire, thou shalt not be burned, neither shall the flame kindle upon thee. For I am the Lord thy God, the Holy One of Israel, thy Saviour. I gave Egypt for thy ransom, Ethiopia and Seba for thee. Since thou wast precious in my sight, thou hast been honored, and I have loved thee. Therefore will I give men for thee, and people for thy life. Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east, and gather thee from the west. I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far, and my daughters from the ends of the earth, even every one that is called by my name. For I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes, and the deaf that have ears. Let all the nations be gathered together, and let the people be assembled. Who among them can declare this, and show us former things? Let them bring forth their witnesses, that they may be justified. Or let them hear, and say, it is truth. Ye are my witnesses, said the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen, that ye may know and believe me, and understand that I am he. Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be after me. I, even I, am the Lord, and beside me there is no Savior.